Welcome to another episode of 22 at the Lips. If you haven't been able to figure it out from, if you clicked on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you stumbled upon us, the YouTubes, this is the podcast from EMS providers to EMS providers, healthcare providers, the random bystander, the civilian, the custodians at the ER, whoever you are. Welcome. Glad you're here. So today, I have a very special guest. This is Alexi Odland. Lex, whatever you want to call her. Just don't call her a beep. No, I'm just kidding. So,
okay, go by anything.
Ashley.
No, not that.
Tiffany. So, we first met whenever I started at the new company that I work at. It was one of my very first ride times, clearing times, whatever you want to call it. I met Alexi and my paramedic that was precepting me, whatever you want to, however you want to address it. And from our very first call, was blown away at her ability to not only operate as an EMT, but like one of those EMTs that not only do they know what they're doing, but you're able to think a couple of steps ahead.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed.
Thank you.
So, Alexi, if you want to tell the people who you are, what you stand for, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I'm Alexi. I've been in EMS for about 2 and a couple months on top of that. I love what I do. I started out straight out of high school, so graduated, went straight to the job. Did all my training through high school. So pretty much this has been really what I've done most of my life since being an adult, I guess you could say. Finally graduated to the big leagues.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Trying to impress.
How's that working?
It works very good.
I mean, obviously I was impressed, so
Exactly.
it's doing something.
Doing something for somebody.
So I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I have a couple of rapid fire questions
Okay.
to kind of a little more get to know you. Question number 1. If you could be a burrito, what kind of burrito would you be?
Chicken cheese.
That was quick. Okay. Why?
Well, I like chicken. I'm white as chicken.
Oh, no.
And I can destroy some cheese.
Fair.
Just walk into someone's house and eat it. So you're lucky you don't have cheese in there.
There's a patient. They're like, my back hurts. Where's your fridge?
I mean, you ask my friends, they're like, yeah, you just walk in and go straight to the fridge and get the cheese. I'm like, yep. It's gotta be the right cheese. It's gotta be yellow cheese. It gotta smell good.
Not like pepper jack, mozzarella. I feel like in a burrito that would really offset it.
It really does. Like cheddar cheese, like if you do white cheddar cheese and yellow cheddar cheese, perfect burrito.
I'm not against it.
On a flour tortilla, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Can't be no spinach.
Oh, I was thinking corn.
I
I like corn tacos, but okay. Question number 2. Growing up, what did you want to be?
Well, I had 2 things I wanted to be. First one was I really wanted to join the Army and be a military police officer. And then the other thing I wanted to do was it's still within the military, but I always thought special forces was the baddest shit ever. And then I didn't do it.
Oh.
I got actually that's how I started my EMS career actually. So I did RTC through high school. Loved it. Did it for 3 years. I didn't do it the last year because I had priorities in my life.
Fair.
And I was like, all right, my plan is I'm gonna do that RTC. I'll go straight into I did Navy RTC and I liked it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the Navy. And my dad's Army. A lot of families Army. So I was like, all right, I'll go Army and go do military police, right? Well, then I figured out I had some health problems, health conditions I got, and I'm like, well, damn.
Guess not.
And then got concussed and ended up sitting in what we call sports medicine. Easiest class you'll ever take in high school, by the way. I literally slept.
Oh.
and passed with a 98.
Okay.
And one of the representatives from the company we work with came down and was like, hey, come join like our explorers, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I mean, I don't like EMS. I don't know what EMS is. But I get to drive a thing with lights. Let me give it a try, right? And it took, did a couple meetings and I was like, holy cow, I like this. But yeah, so that's how I started EMS.
Okay. Question number 3. Why do you and your twin look nothing alike, but it's evident that y'all are twins?
Forgot I told you I had a twin. I really did. So, you got your identical and you got your fraternal, right? So we're fraternals. But growing up, there are times, growing up that at certain ages we looked alike. The way if we were dressed the same, if we did our hair the same, like we look like twins. But like now, if you look at us from a distance, we still look like twins. But if you look at us like up close, like you could say, oh, they have like a family resemblance for sure. But a lot of people are like, oh, this is your older sister, that kind of thing. I also do get that's your older brother, and I'm like, no, not really. But a lot of people, that don't know us and like don't know that we're twins. Like if we were to, stand apart, they're like, oh, is that your twin over there? Yeah, that is my twin. I have a twin. A lot of people are like, holy cow, you have a twin. And, just hair colors and that kind of like facial structure would look the same from a distance. Up close, fine detail, not really.
Was it? And I'd seen a picture and you were like, this is my twin. And I'm like, no, it's not. But I could see the distance thing. I could see that.
The distance, yeah. And then like you've seen some baby pictures, like Halloween pictures. If we were dressed the same, we look like twins. Now, do we act like twins? No. We act like siblings.
Fair.
100% act like siblings.
But not so much like the
twin. Okay. Like, I mean, we have like twin like mindset together at times. But her way of thinking is completely different from mine. Her way of doing her life is completely different from mine. So
that's fair.
We're polar opposites, 100%.
I feel like there's some twins, like my mom and my aunt, they're twins. They kind of are similar in a lot of ways, but like different in other ways. And then in high school, they were twins, and it was like you said, like polar opposites.
Yeah. So growing up, the way I love to put it is she loved dancing and all like the feminine kind of things, and I was more like the tomboy. I loved sports. I had to be physical. Like I wanted to start fights. I started fights. Like
But did you win?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Never lost one.
We don't condone violence.
We don't.
Please
we
don't.
Not. Violence is never the answer.
Well, no, it's not. Okay, so
keep going. Don't start that topic. You're gonna have next podcast is going to be Fight Club with Alexi.
We don't talk about Fight Club.
So this is the one and only time.
All right, so to start things off, we're gonna kind of talk about like paramedic school, not so much of like every single topic, because it is, what do people call it? Baptism by fire hose. It is
baptism by fire.
It is so much, but kind of the experience of it. With you being directly in the cusp, in the heat of, well, kind of near the end of paramedic school. Yeah. I think very relevant.
Very relevant.
So to start things off, what made you want to take that step, climb the mountain, and go into paramedic school?
Well, so after I realized like this is a career I enjoy, and like I enjoy seeing like a lot of people are like, oh, you can either make a difference, see the difference, or you don't see a difference, basically. I had 2 great partners I worked with before I had my current partner. I really saw the difference in both. But the way they treated patients, polar opposite. They never treated anyone bad, but the way they approached treatments, in my opinion, totally different. And I was like, holy cow, like you can do patient treatment this way, or you can just do it just completely other way. Like there are so many ways you can treat patients and not even actually treat them for what medical problem they have, is more of what they're going through is a huge treatment I saw. So my first partner I had, we worked well together, and I was like, oh, thinking about it, like a lot of people are like, oh, you need to go to paramedic school, like you're gonna be great in paramedic school. And I was like, no, like I want to be an EMT. I want to learn my EMT job. I want to be able to tell you on the back of my hand everything I can do as an EMT. And then I went to my second partner, and she didn't was it wasn't like she was pressuring me to become an EMT, or not EMT, a paramedic. I was like, all right, I'm ready EMT, I promise. She wasn't pressuring me to become a paramedic. She was showing me what it's like to be a paramedic.
Okay.
She was like, hey, like, I'm going to teach you X, Y, and Z, and this is how I'm going to treat it. She actually took the time, and a lot of people didn't realize that she took the time to actually teach me what I wanted to know. Whether she knew she was teaching me or not, I learned a ton from her. And, when she kind of was getting into that major burnout phase, I could definitely tell a difference. Like from her wanting to be a great teacher, whether she knew it or not, to where she was in that burnout phase. I was like, I see that difference. She's still willing to come to work and, teach me what I want to know. I was like, I want to do that. I want to be a paramedic. I want to actually be able, I can still treat people and do things and, help them in their, like, either their worst day or their best day.
Yeah.
But I was like, I can do more with a bigger scope of practice if I'm a paramedic. So when I got my current partner, it was a really big thing of where she was like, you're going to paramedic school. Like, it's not I'm pressuring you now, and it's not I'm going to force you to, but I'm telling you, this is the perfect opportunity. You're young, you understand, you know your stuff. You've waited almost 2 years to go to paramedic school. And she goes, this is a perfect time. You're in that learning phase, your EMT stuff, you're comfortable with being an EMT, and you've been training other EMTs. So why not just make that leap of faith into paramedic school? And I was just like, not really like wanting to. And then, I saw, like, after working with her for a couple months, I realized I was like, holy cow, like, she's teaching me so much. I didn't ask her to teach me, but she's teaching me and prepping me for paramedic school. And I'm like, I have a huge advantage. I have her while I have her. Let me utilize that. Let me go to paramedic school.
No, I totally get that. Whenever I wanted to take that first step and like look into paramedic school and stuff like that, it was partially because I'm very type A. And I was like, I want to run the call. I want to call the shots. I want to do the things. But it was also, I had such a good partner when I first like started in EMS. And like you said, it wasn't that pressure of like, you need to go to paramedic school. You could do better. It's more of like that. He would push me a little bit and challenge me. And then I think a big part of it is that teaching aspect of like, it's not just, I'm going to give this medication, but here's why. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And here's what condition I'm treating it for, and if this doesn't work, this is my plan B, and here's plan C and D. And if all else fails, we just go to BLS and we just do BLS side of everything and transport to where they can get that care they need. Was a huge thing, I believe.
So after you made that jump, after you decided I'm going to go to paramedic school, you started, depending on what program you use, it's the initial AMP, you got to get through that. And then
continue, sorry.
Got a little nauseous for a second. But once you got past that and you start, like for me in my program, we started with like operations and the general safety and all that stuff. And then we got into like the medications, pharmacology, and then cardiology, and then endocrine system, whatever else, all the other things.
That is important, but not that important.
Something about kidneys. I don't know.
I was just there.
We got through it.
Yes, you
and I
did.
somehow got the patch, and you're gonna get the patch.
Yeah.
So, being in the heat of it, and you're about to go through capstone, right?
Yeah, we're doing that in probably the next month and a half.
Yeah.
We'll start that.
And if you don't know what capstone is, it's I think how I would explain it is you have all this information, you have the education, you have the material, but now you're going to go through like these clinicals and stuff, and you act as the paramedic, as the ALS provider, all this stuff. So, reflecting on all the education, all the experience, all the giving birth simulations. What would you say has been the most challenging aspect of paramedic school?
I would honestly say the most challenging for me, like, and it differs for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, someone can have challenges with pharmacology. For me, it was cardiology. I loved cardiology so much. Like, I found it very fascinating. You go through EMT school, they teach you a little bit about cardiology.
Mhm.
EMT, you learn everything you learn in paramedic, but paramedic's another level. So, I was always fascinated. I was like, oh, what's the stroke volume? Like, how does this affect everything? And so when we started cardiology, I was so excited. I was like a kid on Christmas Day. I was like, yes, let's go. Like, let's get this cardiology done. Like, I'm so excited for this. And then, like, test one, I was like, oh my God.
Oh no.
This is not what I thought I was doing. Like, I thought I knew what I was doing. Never mind, And so I was like, all right, but you know what? Well, let's just put our head down. Like, let's pull through it, And so for me, cardiology was the hardest. One, squiggle lines, they're hard. I now can tell you what a STEMI looks like, but I can also tell you what a funnel branch looks like and all that. But when I first learned it, that was probably the hardest I've studied. And I'm not one to study. I hate to study.
Same.
And that was like the hardest. I was like, I just have to sit down, throw my phone away, and just focus. Like, just do all these repetitive, like reading 12 leads, like that kind of thing. And eventually, like, I kind of got the hang of it. And then I was like, I don't know, maybe I know this, maybe I don't. I don't particularly say the test shows my ability that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But then, like, when I go back to like my ALS truck, when we get those cardiac patients, and we do 12 leads, you do the 4 lead, you look at everything, and you're like, it's just that ding moment. You're like, holy cow, I know this. Like,
That's where it connects.
I'm like, this just connected. Like, the two dots I needed to connect. I know what I'm doing now. Like, why was this so hard earlier? Like, what? But I think it's just a ton of knowledge they just pile onto you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, you need to know this, you need to know why, you need to know X, Y, and Z of these conditions, this is how you treat it. And I think it was like so much workload on top of managing a personal life and a work life and school life. And I was like, this is hard. But then, when it clicked to me, which it was like weeks later, it clicked. But like when it clicked, I was like, holy cow, like, I know what I'm looking at. I know what's wrong with this patient. Like, I know what the final treatment this patient needs, and I know what the treatment they need at the time with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a challenge, but we made it through.
Right.
I can tell you what a STEMI looks like now, so I'm just proud about that. So
Scarbosa criteria.
Yeah.
No, that's the thing, is that it's whenever you get into those ALS calls and you start getting more of that experience, you start, I don't know, like you said, connecting all of it. That's, for me, that's what made the difference. Because when cardiology, when we got into like the electrical activity and like, oh, V4 looks at this point, and then, oh, AVL and AVR, we're upside down. Like, all of that stuff that I'm sitting here, I'm like, I don't understand. But my partner, fantastic guy, 20 out of 10 would recommend if he was still, actively in EMS, but rip. So good for him though. It was a good move. But
that kind of right. Okay. Wow. I was like, damn, okay.
No, he's
We
still
going a little dark over here.
he is very much alive.
Good.
Um,
Got that cardiac going.
Speaking of stroke volume, he is still here with us. But it really was. It was like those patients with like the weird heart rhythms, and it wasn't like the textbook right bundle, and it wasn't the textbook version of XYZ whatever, but like looking at it, he even got to the point where like you know how you can see like leads to through an AVF, but it's this very particular part of the coronary artery. Like he went and like drew it all out. And I'm so visual, it made the difference. And I was like, oh, duh.
I feel like an idiot, but I'm not. Like, I know what I'm talking about now. Yeah, like that's how my partner was like going into school. She's like, you know, you ask me any other questions, but I'm not gonna teach you cardiology. And I'm like, I kind of was hurt, you know, like I'll be honest. I was like, is it you don't trust your ability to teach cardiology, or like what is it? And she's like, no, like the instructor I have, she goes, he teaches it amazingly. And when he teaches you and lectures to you about what cardiology is and how you look at it and how you treat everything, she goes, it's going to be a click moment. She goes, I'm not going to be over here because, you know, trying to confuse you on everything. So I was like, okay, cool. You know, and like, you know, we get through cardiology. She's like, all right, what does the 12 look like? You know, and I'm like, holy cow, you know, actually looks good, you know, congrats, you know, so, you know, she, you know, I promise she does look at it and make sure
obviously.
I'm not making a mistake over here, I promise, she's a certified paramedic, but,
she's a good one.
She's the best, I would say, one of the best partners I've had. I've had the privilege of working with, and I've actually known her for a couple of years on top of that before I actually had her as a partner, so I really got the pick of the lock for sure with her.
Another thing I wanted to bring up was what you talked about studying. I don't hate to study. I don't not hate to study because I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm a bookworm, but I don't like studying. But it's so much more than just studying. I had to learn this the hard way a little bit. The first test of paramedic school. It's not so much the studying to know like how to pass the test, but it's the importance of studying so you know when you get in the field. And that's how my instructor brought up cardiology. She was like, look, we've gone over these meds, we've gone over this, we've gone over that, blah, blah, blah. She was like, not just cardiology, but from here on out, if you don't know it for yourself and for your patients, she was like, what's the point of even getting on the truck? What's the point of getting your little patch? What's the point?
Exactly.
Because for most systems, I mean, you have your double medic system. That's what I worked at in Utah. It was cool. There are places out there, but I would say a solid 80%, the paramedic is the only ALS provider. And like you can have your good EMTs that know stuff. I know EMTs that can even they can read a 12 lead. Like it's cool, but it's the patient that's at stake, but it's also your patch and your cert that's at stake.
And your company, like,
yeah,
you know, whether you like your company or not, you know, you gotta realize that they have liability insurance for a reason.
Yeah.
They don't want to use it.
Right. Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. You know, I don't want to use, you know, I don't want to make them use it. And I think that's why when we look at, you know, our EMT scope of practice compared to our paramedic scope of practice, paramedics have a higher scope of practice only because they have gone through school probably longer and they understand and they literally have to study to treat their patients and understand what they're treating, because I could throw EMT on the truck and say, all right, here's your 12 lead. What is it? Tell me, what's my treatment? And I probably guarantee you probably 50% of the EMTs that, you know, they go to the school, you know, EMT school, they don't care about what they're doing. They're like, oh, I'm just here, you know, I get to make friends, you know, and it's not everybody that does that.
No.
It's a good amount of people, but it's not everybody, you know, and if you throw them on a truck and you say, here's a 12 lead, here's your patient with that presenting, they're just going to be like, I don't know. They freeze, you know. So as a paramedic and like as you know, for me going through paramedic school is always constantly reminding me like, hey, when I get my patch, you know, when I actually do and know what I'm doing, you know, it's not just me I gotta worry about, it's my patient and my partner, you know. at any point, any of us can be sued.
Yeah, facts.
Anytime we can be sued, even just for dropping a little thing on the floor. Like, people are crazy nowadays. They want to sue for every little thing. So that whole studying thing and like understanding, like you could just say, oh, this doesn't look that bad. What does that mean? I'm gonna sue you. Like, I don't like that. Like, I need to know what the diagnosis, but we're not allowed to make diagnosis.
Right.
But if we say something, patient misunderstands it, they can sue us for it. And I don't want that. So that's why for me, studying and like being like, okay, like I am 99.9% sure this is what's going on in the heart. All right, man, like this is what's going on. Now, can I say that now as an EMT? No. Don't know. And I tell myself, absolutely. Like, I know what this is. This is how I want to treat it. Thinking I had like 5 or 4 steps. If this doesn't work, this is my plan A. This is my plan B. If all else fails, I'm taking it to the hospital no matter what. Common care. Here you go. Here's a blanket. Here's a pillow. That's what my idea is going to be of. If everything fails, comfort care for you. Thanks. It works. Especially Mima over there. She's like, can I have a pillow?
Oh,
yes, baby, you can have
absolutely,
a pillow.
baby.
You want a blanket? I'll give you a blanket.
Dude, that's honestly one of my favorite moments of like getting to the hospital and like you're sitting there waiting for an ER room to open up, whatever. I love looking at those little meatballs and be like, you want a blanket, baby? I'm gonna go get you a blanket. I say,
make sure it's warm. Like it's a hot blanket from the heater. Like, you want a blanket? I got you.
I literally tell them like, I'm gonna pull out all the stops. I'm gonna make sure that they get it heated.
Yeah.
So they get in there. Like,
those heated blankets are no joke. Doing clinicals in the hospital that we do it at, they have 2 of them and they have one in the trauma room, and I just like, I'm gonna go stand in front of this thing. Like, sometimes I get cold and I'm like, let me just go stand in front of this heated blanket area. And I take the blanket out, I'm like, this feels really warm. What patient needs this? Okay, I'm gonna hold it. I'm ready to the patient, So it may not be heated by the time it gets to the patient. But I guarantee you it came out of the heated blanket block or whatever you call it.
Improvised toaster.
There you go. Improvised toaster.
Because it's got the little racks.
It does.
They look like little pieces of bread when they're in.
Oh my god, yes it does. I want toast, thank you.
Oh, we can.
I need you to smell toast, and you're not making toast. You're having a stroke, I promise.
Was that why that one time I started smelling? No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. Another thing about studying and knowing the material for you and for your future patients and for the representation of your company, because another thing, even if you don't like the company you're working at, you still show up for that shift in that uniform. Like, why sit there and make yourself miserable? Like, do I agree with every single thing that our company pushes? Like, no. I mean, I understand some of the things of the why, but like, every EMS system has pros and cons, but even on days where I'm like, man, I hate this job and, I hate this company, and I still put that uniform on and I'm like, well, here we are. Here's my next paycheck. So I'm going to don the postman.
Let's go do this. No, yeah. I think that's a big thing that I've seen a lot, especially in our company and the surrounding companies in our city, is a lot of people are kind of upset. They're like, I don't want to do this, and I think is the way we're treated is a huge thing. I think that's probably going to be the major thing. I'm not going to mention the other things, so that's going to be a whole nother debate on something. And I don't think we have time for that debate. But I think I always tell my new hires, I get EMTs, as new hires, and I'm like, look, one, you chose this job, you chose this company. You chose this company. This company is a great company.
It really is.
It's a great company. Now, yes, do we disagree with a lot of things? Yes, but are we going to have a perfect company that everyone's going to be happy at? No, there's always going to be an unhappy person. And the biggest thing I will say is, especially if you're coming into this career field, whether you're coming in as a new paramedic or you're coming in as a new EMT or seasoned paramedic or EMT, any company you go to, look at the bright side. You have a job.
Facts.
You are out there helping somebody. And I don't know why you would do this job if you didn't care about other people.
The 22 at the Lips podcast is designed to support, not replace, the relationship that exists between a practitioner and his or her medical director. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host, guest, and not necessarily of Master Medics. The information provided during this podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for your approved protocols.